Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis, and this is the Success for Women radio show on the Women for Women Network. Today, I am so excited. My guest is calling in all the way from Singapore. Yes, she sacrificed some sleep just to come on and share some great information with you. So if you're out there listening, make sure that you are taking notes because the information she's sharing with you is going to be off the chain. Today, my guest is Pamela Wigglesworth, and I'm telling you, this lady is fantastic. I'm so delighted to just introduce her as a guest. She's originally from the US, and she's currently a resident of Singapore. She's been there for over 23 years. Pamela is she's a CSP, and she's an international marketing and entrepreneurship expert and business author. She has experienced business failure and mid-career. This is what became the catalyst for who she is today and the driving force behind the small business community she aims to serve. As the CEO of Experiential Hands-On Learning, she has carved out a unique space in the marketplace, specializing in small business branding, marketing, and entrepreneurship, which while maintaining her presence in the corporate arena, working with large multinational organizations across Asia. Drawing on more than 25 years experience as a business owner, she has a deep understanding of the issues and challenges that are facing today's small business owners and has a global and multicultural outlook on life and business. She's also the author of 3 business books: The 50 to 60 something Startup Entrepreneur, How to Quickly Start and Run a Small Business, Public Relations, Small Business Acceleration, Get Noticed Using Facebook, LinkedIn, Email Marketing, Public Relations, and Video Marketing. She's a member of the Global Speakers Federation, and she has served as past Vice President of the Asia Professional Speakers in Singapore. She's a founding board member of the Primetime Business and Professional Women's Association in Singapore, and she is going to join us today to discuss the 50 to 60 something startup entrepreneur, how to quickly start and run a successful small business. So I just want to bring on and welcome my guest and thank her profusely for coming on and for taking the time out of her sleep schedule to be here with us. And ladies and gentlemen, we have Pamela Wigglesworth. Welcome to the Successful Women Show.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. Sleep is overrated, so it's not a problem. You know, when you've got to get things done, we can get things done. So it's my pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to share with your listening audience about entrepreneurship, those who might be in business or those who might be thinking about it, and how we can support them in their journey.
Well, I appreciate you nevertheless, even though sleep is overrated. So let's begin. I'd like to start with you, before we kind of dive into the ins and outs of becoming a business owner. How would you define entrepreneurship?
Well, that's a fantastic question to start with, because I think it defines everything. So if we look at what entrepreneurship means, it means to solve a problem for somebody and make a profit. You'll see a lot of people will talk about 50, 60 something startups doing business because they love doing what they love, to do, but it's not about making a profit. But the bottom line is it really is about earning a living. And so what I want to do is take it a step further and say entrepreneurship isn't just about you selling a product or a service. It's really about you understanding that you're solving a problem, but you're also providing for your consumer or your business. You're giving them results. You're providing an outcome. You're providing a transformation. So you're not necessarily selling the product or service. You're selling the outcome, the benefits, the pain that they will overcome as a result of your product and service. So those of you who are listening, I really want you to take that to heart, because that is really will make a huge difference in your business when you realize that it's not about the product and service, it's what the consumer will get. So we think of it this way: sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Wow. There you go. So tell me, the 50 to 60 something startup entrepreneur. Now that's a really book specific title. So tell us, why did you write this book, and what is it all about?
Okay, thank you for that. It really is about looking at what's happening in the world, and this is something that's been going on for a while. I call it the silent exodus of men and women in their 50s and 60s and sometimes 70s who are being nudged out of the corporate world, or it might even be civil service or the military. And it's well before they're ready to actually retire. They're not ready to retire financially. The problem with that is it leads to what I call the perfect storm. And the perfect storm is a set of 5 different circumstances that if we looked at them independently, they'd be benign in nature. But collectively, together, they are going to form this perfect storm. So what this is all about is a person who was to lose their job in their 50s or 60s most likely will look for another job. Mm-hmm. However, they're not likely to be rehired. And that's because women in their 50s and 60s are more expensive. We have more experience. We have more knowledge. But we also come with higher medical claims. So companies are looking at us that way and saying, I don't think so. So this then starts the downward spiral. And so the first thing that's going to happen that makes up the perfect storm is the fact that people will experience long-term unemployment. So in the United States, it will take somebody who's over 50 approximately 36 weeks at the minimum, if they're lucky to find another job, 36 weeks before they get hired. But chances are they're not going to, in which case their unemployment benefits are going to start to run out. And you're going to find people will start tapping into their savings if they have savings to do so. So that's the first item that's part of the storm. The second thing is they are now competing with the millennials and Gen X and people who are in the gig economy. Now, the gig economy is where companies choose not to hire an individual full-time, but they would rather hire somebody on a part-time basis who is not really even part of the company. They're part of a freelance company. And they go to that website and find a freelancer who then works for you. That means they're not having to pay any medical benefits. So individuals are competing with those in the gig economy as well as the Gen Y and Gen X's. The third item is they might become part of what we call the club sandwich generation. And the club sandwich generation are individuals in their 50s, 60s, maybe even early 40s, who have elderly parents that they're looking after. Not necessarily financially, but they might be they might be living with them, or they might be in a home. So they're looking after their parents. They're also looking after their younger children. So children that are in their 20, say mid-20s, 30s, we call them boomerang kids. These are kids that come back to live at home because they can't find work, or they've gone to college and they can't find a job. They end up back with their parents, probably living in the basement, and they may be have their own children, and they also come with the package. So now you've got this 50, 60-year-old looking after 4 generations of family under one roof, which is a hardship, major financial burden for 1 or 2 people to have to encounter. The fourth item is then we start looking at, we're going to be living longer. Most of us in our 50s, we're going to live, if you're a woman, likely to live to in your 90s, well into your hundreds because of medical technology. Your kids today, or children born today, are more likely to live to 120. And that sounds quite scary. But even for those of us who are in our 50s and 60s, I just turned 60 myself. I've got another 40 years ahead of me. The question is, am I going to be able to live the lifestyle that I wish to live and be able to maintain it and maintain my health? So we've got a longer lifespan ahead of us, also contributing to that. And the last item that makes up the perfect storm is the fact that Social Security is, at a crisis, status, that we're starting to run out of money. There's not enough millennials or Gen X in the workplace to replace the money that will start to be going out to boomers who are retiring now. And suddenly the amount of money people will actually have for their Social Security will become less and less. On top of that, if you end up having to tap your Social Security well before the age of 65, you will automatically only receive 75% of what you would have normally earned if you had waited till the time that you were already scheduled to retire. So the purpose of the book really was to sound the alarm that this storm is coming, but it's not on people's radar. And they're going to be in for a shock. And what will happen is there'll be two outcomes. People either become part of what I call the 50-60 poverty economy, or they will get on board and they will become part of what I call the 50-60 startup entrepreneur movement. So the book is really about sounding the alarm, and then it goes into the details of from A to Z of how do you set up and run your own business.
And that brings me to the next question, because at the beginning of the book, you talk about mindset. So why is this something women need to think about when starting their own business?
Well, I think everything starts with mindset, especially when you think about losing a job when you weren't expecting it. I think I was in my 30s. No, maybe I was in my late 20s when I lost a job. And it was nothing that I had done per se, nothing that I'd done wrong, but it still kind of messes with your mind. People who lose a job when they're not expecting it go through kind of like the different levels of grief, but there's feelings of shame, embarrassment. There's feelings of grief, of what did I do wrong? Am I broken? What's wrong with me? Am I not worthy? And so suddenly you have people who are feeling unworthy, and then suddenly they're in the situation where they can't find a job. So there's two types of entrepreneurs. There's the opportunity-driven entrepreneur, and there's the necessity-driven entrepreneur. And the latter is the person who's unable to find work and suddenly finds themselves saying, I have no choice but to start a business. But if you start with the mindset of, oh my gosh, this is my last resort, you're not exactly feeling confident. So I want people to understand that, yes, you can lose a job. Is it uncomfortable? Is it sometimes embarrassing, even though you didn't do anything wrong? Absolutely. But people need to understand that people who start a business in their 50s and 60s are more likely to be successful than somebody who starts a business in their 30s. So I just want people to get their mind in check, to know that it is possible. I have had a business failure. I've had 2 businesses fail. But I knew that it was in me that I could find a way to overcome that, and I chose to fail forward. So I want people to have the right mindset to know that even though you might have lost your job, you too can fail forward. You can be successful. You can do this. You can earn a living. You can support your family. You can take care of yourself, and you can enjoy it in the process as well. So it starts with your mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've created your own framework for how to start and run a business, the 8 P's of entrepreneurship path framework. So what exactly does the entrepreneurship path look like?
Okay, great question. I chose the 8 P's, first of all, because it's an alliteration and it makes it easier for people to follow what the process is. And I notice as people start a business, they, go out and get the name, they register that, and then they sit there and go, okay, now what do I do? So the 8 Ps is walking people through the entire process of what entrepreneurship is. And the first one is pain. So let me just go through them quickly. Pain is the first one, and then we have the person, and then we have the product, we have perception, we have the positioning, then there's pricing, place, and then platform. And the first one is pain, because everything starts with a pain. In other words, what's the pain in the marketplace? What's the problem that needs to be solved? Then we look at who's the person who's experiencing this pain. The person refers to the target audience that you're dealing with. The person who's wakes up, early in the morning or goes to bed at night with this knot in their stomach, wondering, how are they going to get by, or whatever the problem is that they need to solve. And then the third P is the product or the service that you are going to be offering that will then solve that problem. The fourth P is perception, and perception is all about branding and creating the brand around your products and service. And then positioning, where are you going to be positioned in the marketplace in terms of your pricing, in terms of your location, in terms of what you offer to the marketplace. And then how do you price your products and services? And this is a tricky one because as newbies, new entrepreneurs tend to take themselves out of the equation. They don't give themselves a salary. So that's the first thing I want to say to new startups is make sure you are, even if you're not giving yourself a salary right away, that you put it in as part of your pricing. And then there's place. Place actually represents distribution, and it means how many different ways can you sell your products and services, because there are multiple ways, not just one. And then platform is how do you promote your products and services, and that's really equates to marketing. And how do you get your brand name out there? How do you attract customers? Everything around your social media, to advertising. So that's probably one of the biggest chapters in the book is platform, because people don't invest enough in marketing, and without marketing, there are no sales. So those are the 8 Ps.
Wow, that is so interesting. So tell me, you mentioned one of the P's you mentioned was perception, and that you said relates, and it's all about branding.
Correct.
How does perception relate to starting a business?
Okay, I was just in the States a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting to see. I had the participants in the audience pull out their business card, and I asked them to share with each other and get feedback from other members. And what surprised me was the number of business owners who had business cards printed on paper, and you could see where they had a border, and they just cut it out with scissors. And I said to them, my immediate belief about you is that you're not a serious business owner if you do not invest in yourself and take the time to create your brand. So perception is all around branding, creating a brand personality, creating your brand positioning, identifying the colors that resonate with the consumer based on the product and service that you are offering. It's about coming up with the ideal font that also creates an idea in the customer's mind, or I should say the consumer's mind. So if you think about, we say perception is reality. So what somebody perceives about you or your brand or your product or service becomes their reality. So my reality with these ladies last week was, if you're using just construction paper to print your business card, that tells me you don't value yourself. And how is the consumer going to value? Because you haven't made the effort to create a brand around your product and service and invest in quality stationery suite, letterhead, and business cards. And that's just one aspect. That's a visual representation of your brand. So it's important that you really focus on that. And the most important thing is what you call your company name. Brand name is everything. It's not something to be rushed into. In fact, some of my businesses, I've taken 6 months before I've actually decided on what the company name was going to be. You can still move forward with your business, but take the time to come up with an appropriate name that's easy to pronounce, that represents what you offer, your USP, and consider making an effort to create your brand, because this is what's going to carry your business. It's the first thing the customer sees. So that's what perception is all about, creating the brand image, the brand identity, so that customers will resonate with it and will be drawn to you.
Wow. You mentioned for some people who have never thought about becoming an entrepreneur, but now find themselves in a position of needing to start a business. So what advice would you give to them on how to start?
Okay, it's a really good question, and I think it's where most people get stuck. They know they need to come up with something, but they don't know where to begin. So the first thing to do is look at your industry. What do you know? Always look at what you know, or what is your current or past experience. It may be that you start with the same industry that you're currently in, or you just currently left, and you can then set up your own consultancy. But if you are starting from scratch where you just really don't have a clue, then the first thing is look at the industries. What do you have an interest in? The second step is to look at, where is there a hole in the marketplace? Where is there a need? What is lacking in the marketplace that you might be able to fill? And then the third step is look at your skill set. And then say, so it's almost like drawing 3 circles. The first circle represents the industry. The second circle, and you cross over that into the first, and you say, okay, what is it that I'm good at? Where is there a hole in the marketplace? Where is there a need? And then a third circle, again, you're combining all of these, and you're going to have a spot in the middle. We call that the sweet spot. That's where you should be focusing on what you can do. It's either a skill that you have or a skill that you can learn. So look around you. You think about all the things that we have today is based on a need. So just recently I was at the airport and I saw a woman. She had a baby with her, and the taxi driver just dropped her off by the curbside, and she had all this luggage, and I thought, how is she going to possibly get inside the airport? So I asked her, did she need some help getting her luggage into the airport? And she said no. And I'm thinking, she doesn't need any help. I'm looking at this baby stroller in front of her, and I'm thinking, how could she possibly make it? But she said, I've got it covered. And all of a sudden she took her foot and she stepped on a little lever, and the stroller popped up. And then she just locked it in place. And I said, now that was somebody who came, that was an idea that had to come from a mother who had her hands full, who said, how can I make it, so that I have my hands free and I can still move this baby around, and I still can do the pram and get it, the stroller up and upright without having to use my hands. And so this is what we talk about. Ideas are born out of a pain or problem in the marketplace. So simply look around you. Where is there a need? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to see, how can I do something different? Can I do it faster? Can I do it cheaper? Can I do it better? And go from there. So look at your surroundings, look at what you know, what's your experience, where's there a hole in the marketplace, where's there a need, and what are my skill set, and then sit down and draft a business plan.
That is so key. Those are some key points. Pamela, you are just filling up us with so much information. We're going to take a quick break right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Success for Women radio show. I'm Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis. We're on the Women for Women Network, and we will be right back in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to the Success for Women radio show. I'm Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis, and our featured guest today is Pamela Wigglesworth, and she is again calling in from Singapore. So again, bless her for just being such an advocate for women and helping them to excel and getting their business off the ground, that she is willing to get up that early in the morning. I think it's around two something there, to be on the radio show with us. So we're going to bring her back on. And the question I have for her to start this second part of the show is, I read an article that you had written, and that article, the title just resonated, and it was very interesting. And the question you asked us to start the article out was, are you as equally prepared as Noah? Can you tell me what you meant by that? Give our listeners, and if they want to read the article, they can pull it up on LinkedIn. But I just want you to tell me a little bit about what you meant by that.
It's a great question. Actually, we've been having a lot of rain in Singapore, so much so that one day I said, oh my gosh, I need to start building an ark, because this is just crazy. And then it made me think about, the concept of, I use that as a metaphor for entrepreneurship, or for those leaving, the workplace, because most people who lose their job don't see it coming. And so what I want people to do is say, it's great to be positive. I'm a very positive person, but at the same time, people need to be aware, the more positive you are in the workplace or as an individual, the more likely you're not going to see what's coming. And so what the article is really about is preparing yourself, bracing yourself, getting ready with what we call a side hustle, a second business on the side that you can do, so that in the event you suddenly find yourself without work, you're not caught off guard. So preparation is, a lot of people do not like they fly low under the radar at work, thinking if they don't see me, I'm safe. When in actual fact, that's hurting you. You need to be seen. You need to be seen as making a contribution to your company. You need to volunteer. You need to offer your time to certain things so that people will see you as valuable. But if you fly low under the radar, you're more likely to be on the list of the chopping block. So the article is really about preparing yourself, networking, getting out and building your network within the company as well as outside the company, getting your CV ready, having it ready. I know we say CV in Asia, having your resume ready to go. In the event something happens, you'll be the first one to be able to start getting your resume out there to new companies, whereas most people are going to be so busy reeling from the shock, they will put off doing that resume right away. And then maybe wait 2 or 3, a month or so, saying, oh, I'll wait, I'll take some time off. That's the worst attitude to take, because it is going to take you, a long time if you're lucky enough to find another job. And then it's also about telling people, watch your spending. When my youngest sister, about 4 days after she turned 51, her whole department lost their job. And they had about 3 months before they actually had to leave the company. But I like to tell people, start preparing now. Cut back on your spending. That means not going out for dinner or going out for lunch every day. Bring your lunch. Eat in more often. Cut out that cable channel. You think about, there's channels, 300 channels? You can only watch one at a time. So why do you need that many? Cut back on that. Look at what you don't need. Cut back on your landline. If you're using a cell phone all the time, then maybe don't need to have the landline. But watch your spending and really prepare for the future. Noah, everybody laughed at him because they said it's blue skies, there's no rain in the sky, and you're building an ark. But yet he prepared in advance anyway, and was able to take care of himself and his family when the flood came. So the question to the listeners is, are you prepared in the eventuality of your own kind of flood? And actually that could be even literally a flood, depending on where you live, or a fire or whatever it might be going on. Are you prepared? And they need to think about that, just because you never know what's going to happen.
Wow, that was a great way to actually put all that into perspective, because the title itself really caught my interest, which is why I read the article, and you put it in perspective, great, because a lot of people in the workplace, they do fly low under the radar because especially in some positions, you look sometimes at the federal government, people have been there forever, 30, 40 years. And so they just get so comfortable, and they don't want to come out of that comfort zone. And so they don't want to be noticed because they don't want you to give them an extra project to do or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're saying is just so key. So tell me, what advice do you have for encore entrepreneurs who are technophobic or who have little experience when it comes to technology? And let me tell you, I'm one of those people that's not technologically savvy. So,
and think about it, just don't beat yourself up about that because most people aren't. If you have been working for somebody else for 30 to 40 years of your life and you had one specific role, there's likely to have been a department that handled anything that was related to technology. So we're not like kids today where I say, are born, with a computer in their hand and a cell phone in their hand and they're technologically savvy. And so this is one of the things that hurt entrepreneurs or startup entrepreneurs in their 50s and 60s. They shy away from technology. And what I really on a mission to say is it's something that they must embrace. You must look at it. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but you need to do it. And so there's one chapter in the book where it is literally about that, and it's entitled Suck It Up and Embrace Technology, because technology will be your new best friend. It will save you so much time, so much money. If you look at resources, it saves you time, and manpower, saves you resources of money, because there's so many more things that you can do using technology. So I encourage people to maybe sign up for a class, a computer class if you need to. Start reading. I think I'm going to actually even do another book on just technology, just so people they'll be literate when it comes to technology, but start slow, embrace it, learn it. Now, once you learn it, it's easier for you to pass it off to somebody else to do. But if you don't know the ins and outs of how to have a customer relation management system, then you're not going to be able to collect emails or send out emails. So you need to know all those things. So don't be afraid of it. And when you do learn, you'll be surprised at how much easier it is. But it's going to be I call it your PA. It will be your personal assistant. So don't be afraid of it. Go for it.
And I tell you what, that customer relations management system is definitely key for people in business, which is a lot of people refer to as a CRM.
Yes.
And I tell you, when I had to really get in the back of mine, it was a chore and it was a task. But you're right, you need to know, even like you say, if you do pass it on to someone else, you still need to know how it works. And that's sort of like in the workplace, they tell you when you're a leader, you need to know a little bit about each thing that goes on in your department, so to speak, so that you can speak to it. Even though you might not be the expert, you still need to know how it runs and be able to have some idea of what's going on. So I just can't emphasize that enough to, like you said, even though I joked about being not being technologically savvy, and it's true, but it's something that has to be learned. I was just a matter this weekend, we were going over something about Facebook, and she was telling me that, showing me some things of how I could have done something that I posted, how I could have posted it a little better than what I did to make it have a better impact, in other words. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't know that, but it's something I should know. and it's something that I should practice doing. So that's a very key, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So tell me, what are some of the big challenges new business owners in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s may experience?
Okay, well, we've just actually talked about one, which is technology. And one of the things I wanted to add to that is don't get sucked into buying the most robust software program or app. Start small and find the cheapest one out there, learn the program. So if you're looking for an email service provider, look into MailChimp. It's so easy when you start playing around with it. They've got great tutorials, and most programs actually do have tutorials. So for me, I'm a visual learner. I'm not an auditory learner, so I have to watch a video tutorial a couple of times. And I like to work with two computers, or I should say one computer and a second monitor. So that way I can do something on my computer at the same time, watch the tutorial on another monitor, another screen. Okay. So, and that's actually will increase your productivity too when you work with more than one monitor or more than one screen. So technology is one of the things that tends to hold us back. And one of the things I'm actually advocating is to start talking to different companies to say, you need to create different types of tutorials for the 50, 60 something, because you're using terminology that's new to them. You're moving quickly through a tutorial faster than we can keep up. So to really start embracing 50, 60s as a demographic when it comes to technology, because we are the future. In the next 2 or 3 years, 50, 60 somethings will exceed, there'll be more of this in the world than there will be millennials and Gen X. So we're going to continue to rise. So technology is one of the challenges. Another challenge that we experience is the fact that we don't have time on our side. We don't have time in the sense of to have a long learning curve. We don't have the time to have that experience and fail and then take our time to figure it out. We need to fail forward, and we need to fail fast. We need to learn it as quickly, our craft as quickly as we possibly can, and get up and running, because we don't have the luxury of trying to figure it out over a period of 5 or 10 years. So time is not necessarily on our side. The other one, so we have technology, and then the third one challenge is funding. Finding the right funding for your business. So I would encourage people to really explore the Small Business Administration. They're a great wealth of information. They will steer you in the right direction as to what types of funding is out there. Hopefully, I'd like to believe, and hopefully in the future, we'll start seeing more programs again aimed at 50, 60-year-olds. I think AARP used to do something called the Encore Entrepreneur. And I'm not sure if it was funding that they could get, but hopefully people will start looking at us as a viable demographic to say, yes, this is the group that we need to be investing in, because we tend to be more successful when we start a business in our 50s and 60s. So the challenges are really funding, technology, and the fact that we don't really have time to really get it wrong. We will have to focus on getting it right from the beginning, or as close as we can.
That does make sense. So as a new business owner, how should one set the price for their product or service?
That is always the trickiest question to answer, because there's so many different pricing models out there. What I'd like to encourage people, and I mentioned this earlier, is to figure out what are your true cost of your product and service. Even if it's a service and you don't have a lot of setup cost, or because you're not involved in manufacturing, anything like that. But look at your overall cost. Then also look at, even if you're working from home, you should be building into your pricing structure the cost for your home office. the amount you spend on some, a portion of your cell phone could probably go toward the cost of should be included in your pricing. And also salaries. Even if you're not generating a salary per se, you should do your costing based on having your salary in there, so that when you are ready to take a salary, your product or service allows for that. But so many people aren't able to pay themselves a salary because they haven't priced themselves appropriately. The other thing is, don't undervalue yourself. This is something I think we see this with women. We don't put the right price tag on our services. We think, I'm just starting, so therefore I need to be lower than the next guy. That's a big mistake, because you will price yourself out of the market. When you start lowballing your price to compete with your competitors, and they see you in the marketplace, they might lower their price, and it's just a downward spiral. It's a race to the bottom. So I always tell people, start out, give yourself the hourly rate of $250 an hour, if not more. You need to see your value. This goes back to your branding and your perception. So the price also sets a perception. If you are at the low end, we think about it, we say, what's the expression? We equate quality with price. So why not start high and create the perception that your value is higher and have people pay a higher price? So don't price yourself out of the market. Go higher. You can always come down, but it's very hard to go up if you start with a low price.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners out there, where can they find your book, and also how can they connect with you if they want to find out more about the 50 to 60s entrepreneurship, and also maybe get coaching or what have you? How can they connect with you?
Okay, well, they can connect with me through my website, or through me individually through my email, which is Pam, P-A-M, at experiential, EXPERIENTIAL, and it's .SG. So that's because I'm here in Singapore, but I do work internationally with people. The book is available on Amazon as a Kindle or as a paperback. You can also buy it through iTunes, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and I believe also through Google Play. And then you can reach me, again, come to the website with that same URL, and you'll find some information there. Eventually, we'll launch a new one that's just aimed at 50, 60 entrepreneurs. That's coming a little bit later. But I'm happy to answer questions. Anybody starting out or has a question about their marketing, because it's key. And this is the whole purpose of this, is to really be able to support this community so that people can thrive. I don't want people just to survive. I want them to thrive. And so the book goes through all the details from, like I said, to start to actually set up to pricing, so that people, and then there's questions at the end of each chapter there, I should say. There are action steps that people can take that will help them to set up their business. It's a step-by-step guide.
Great. Sounds great. And I hope everyone out there was taking notes and listening to Pamela Wigglesworth, the information that she was providing to you. You've been listening to the Successful Women radio show on the Women for Women Network. I'm Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis, and if you want to connect with me, you can go to my website, which is www.exwsi.com, or you can email me at info@exwsi.com. If you missed our end of the year Christmas breakfast this past Saturday, I'm telling you, you missed a treat, but there's still time if you want to donate to our nonprofit organization, which is Daughters of Zion Empowerment Center. You can go to www.dzec.org and make your donation. And also, if you go to my website, make sure that you download my free 3-part video series on 3 things every woman should do to position herself for executive leadership before you have the title. or you can sign up for my online course, which is Crack the Career Code: How to Lead with Confidence, Charisma, and Credibility. So if you want to sign up for the online course, just go to crackthecareercode.com, and that'll take you straight to the course. And if you want to, the breakfast was our last event for 2018, but starting in 2019, our first workshop, The Many Faces of Abuse, will start Saturday, March 16th, and then our 7 Steps to Wholeness course will start on March 19th, and that will be every Tuesday at 7 p.m. for 22 weeks. And I'm telling you, you will definitely have a breakthrough and learn some things about yourself that you didn't ordinarily know or have not recognized if you take that 7 Steps to Wholeness course, which is 22 weeks. So again, you've been listening to the Success for Women radio show. I'm Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis on the Women for Women Network. So join us every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I want to just thank my guest again, Pamela Wigglesworth, who called in from Singapore to just share some great information. And I hope that you were able to get this information, take down a lot of notes that she shared with you. And I hope to have her back soon, especially when her new book comes out that she'll be talking about. So thank you for joining us on the Success for Women radio show. Come back again next Monday, 2 p.m.
The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.